Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Today is a beautiful story about perseverance, overcoming, definitely that beast mindset, but more importantly, the journey of faith and how important that belief is in achieving the ultimate journey in life. Today, we're going to go into the mind, the creative mind of one of the up and coming leaders in writing. Her book, soon to be a bestseller, definitely an inspiration. I'd like to welcome to the Andre The Beast Crayton Show, the one, the only, the award-winning author of the book, Faith Through the Fog, Miss Lisa Frank. What's up, Lisa?
Hey, Andre.
Great book. Great book we got here. Before we get started, so tell the viewers exactly who Lisa Frank actually is.
Okay, well, I was an addictions counselor for 18 years. I've been out of that field for 17 years working in the medical field. And but I recently did return to school to complete my MSW in social work,
Masters in social work,
master's
right?
in
Okay.
social work. And just writing. I wrote the book in 2017, and it has helped a lot of people to understand what mental illness is about, and also when if someone read it that didn't have that involved in their life or anyone around them, they also came back and said how they were very encouraged, and it gave them that push to continue to persevere, that if we wait anything out in life, we can get through it.
What was the journey for this book, Faith Through the Fog? Like, how much is this is actually your story in general? Because usually when authors begin to tell a story, it usually resonates from childhood into adulthood. How much of this is actually your journey, and how did it actually come about?
Well, all of it is my journey.
Okay.
All of it. And it actually started at the age of 4 when I was hit by a drunk driver. My mother allowed me to go outside with my 8-year-old sister, and she went across the street to talk to a neighbor hanging out the window. And the neighbor, and when I turned around and saw her, I headed across the street, and a drunk driver hit me. And I had a traumatic brain injury. My skull was, cracked,
Oh, you say
and
correct? Wow.
yeah, and I have the scar, this, a lot of stitches on this side of my head. And I was, like I said, 4 years old, and the doctors gave my parents the prognosis that I'd either die or be a vegetable. And my family is a praying family. My grandfather was a pastor, and they came and prayed. And in 3 days, I came out the coma. And the first thing I said was, "Mom, I'm hungry."
Really?
And then 10 days later, I walked out of the hospital.
When you that age and you come out of a coma, you probably don't even remember none of that.
No, I don't. I just remember coming home and having a bandaged head because they, of course, had to shave my head. And I only remember that because of an incident with my sister, who I later wrote about. We had a very antagonistic relationship from childhood that only escalated in my teens.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Elaborate on that a little bit. I heard a sibling rivalry, but you're saying you guys had some shit going on.
Yeah, yeah, it was a lot deeper than sibling rivalry. So in that incident that I remember her calling me bald headed because they had to shave off all my hair, and I remember being afraid because at 4 years old you don't think, okay, it's just a hair, it's gonna grow back, you know. And I was always the story of the family whenever the aunts would tell my story and how impressed they were that, although I may have, everybody has some challenges, but how I move through life in spite of that. So fast forward at
You think
eight.
your sister was, when you're that age, and it doesn't appear to be so much sibling rivalry as it may appear to be misunderstanding misunderstanding from the age category for both, but more importantly, you now are the center of attention. You almost was not there anymore. You are a blessing. Not saying that your sister wasn't, but maybe your sister couldn't comprehend all that.
And I understand that. I could see it. I don't feel that in that time that they did a really good job introducing another child into the family either, like they do now, with books and different things. So when I turned 16, when I turned 16, we were in the house and it was in the morning, and she was already in the kitchen, and I came down to make my coffee and start my days at school.
You're drinking coffee at 16?
Yeah, my mother.
Okay.
My mother. My mother.
I wasn't drinking coffee at
Yeah,
16.
I was, and that wasn't the water generation either. So, yeah, my mother grew up, very challenged as far as food, and so whatever we wanted, we got to eat.
Okay.
So, I when I went to the sink to get my cup, she pushed me, and I had been going through years of, getting picked on by her and mistreated. So it was that day that I said, and it was the day before my mom's birthday. So it was that day that I said, you know how you think fast, I'm tired of this crap. And, I was getting ready to hit her, and she threw boiling hot coffee in my face. So,
Now, was this your biological sister? Same mom, same dad? Where was your dad at? I hear a lot
okay,
of.
so my dad was a long distance truck driver.
Okay.
So his route was to haul oranges and grapefruits from Florida. So he was in Florida when it happened. And it was early in the morning. My mom worked kind of late. She worked on Wall Street, so she got home like around 8:30 or so, and so she slept in a little bit. But the door of the kitchen, the screen door, it was just closed, not the regular door, and her room was right above it. So she heard me screaming, and we actually ran past each other in the hallway, and she said, "What happened?" And I could hear her screaming. I said, "She burned me, she burned me." And so she said, I could hear her screaming at her saying, "What did you do? What did you do?" And so I was so upset, not so much from the burn, but I guess within me not believing that, my own sibling.
I was going to say that somebody would do
Yeah.
that. How
And
bad was the burns?
well, it was second degree. And I went to lay on my mom's bed, and she pulled me up out of nowhere. I heard her screaming downstairs, but she pulled me up, and she was like, "Don't do that, because your skin can tear if you." And so she started putting some ointment on my face, and then realized that it was worse than.
So you had to go to the doctor for medical treatment.
And we were just 3 blocks from the hospital. And so she just said, "Come on." And then what we didn't realize was I had on just my robe and underclothes. So the coffee had seeped and stayed right there in my bra.
Penetrating your skin even
Yeah.
worse.
So when we got to the hospital before we left, she said, "Oh, don't go anywhere. The police are going to want to ask you
I
some
was getting ready to
questions."
say, when did child services pop your face?
Child services wasn't what it is now. Nothing like it is now.
Really?
Really. So we went to the hospital. She was in the lobby. I was inside on the gurney. And the doctor came down. And by the time the doctor came down, I had all these blisters all over my chest. And he said, "Who did this?" And I think that just to even mouth those words, my sister just ripped me up inside. And and he just said, "Oh, okay," and he just took a gauze and just ripped them off, all of the blisters. And he gave me ointment. They bandaged me up. I was bandaged up to here, up to my top of my neck. And so we went home. We went home, but while I was sitting on the gurney, I made a vow that I wasn't going to trust anybody. That if my own sister did this to me, then I wouldn't trust anybody.
How did your family react with what she had did to you? And even your father when he returned home.
Well, it was a 24-hour drive that he did in 18 when he heard about it. So he was eating up the road to get there, and I had older siblings that didn't live at home anymore. So they came, and everybody would just, pull the bandage back and see how raw I was. And then they would just be like, because it wasn't the first time that she's attempted to hurt me, because she's put poison in my food. She's put
cleaning. Wait. We'll be back after this commercial on this bullshit. This is a lot. This is crazy. This is some stuff that you probably only see in a science fiction movie, but this is real life murder she wrote in your house, basically about to happen. But my thing is, from a parent standpoint, I'm should have some deep ass questions about why my other sibling is causing harm to you. What happened repercussion wise to your sister? Nothing.
No, because DIFUS, what we call DIFUS in New Jersey, but Child Protective Services wasn't what it is today. And she said that to her, but my mom grew up in the church, and she didn't have any conflict resolution skills. So
they didn't know how to deal with her. They just kind of let the stuff perpetuate. Okay, but you letting this stuff constantly perpetuate. She's poisoning your food, hot water on you. Jesus Christ, I hate to ask what else happened, but I'm going to ask what else happened.
So, there was two occasions
there were more?
Well, with the food where we had got into a disagreement, and so I would walk up to the PATH station, get out of the house, walk up to the PATH station and wait for my mom to come. And we walk home together, and I tell her what happened and what have you. And then I left my food on the table. And then when I went to reheat and eat my food, that's when I smelled the rat poison.
Cyanide.
Well, we had back in the day pest stores that you went and bought rat poison, so you knew that distinct smell because we had mice. So so you knew that distinct smell, and I was like, oh my. And so I told my mom, and then another time the same thing happened, and I went to go drink my we drank a lot of Kool-Aid at the time.
Who doesn't?
Right.
What's your favorite?
Back in the day, grape.
What was my favorite back in the day?
Probably orange or strawberry.
Yeah, orange. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like orange. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So,
and there was Top Job in it.
We couldn't afford that.
So so there was. So we drank. I went to drink it, and there was Top Job in it. So I told my mom.
Top Job is cleaning stuff.
Yes.
Oh my God.
So I did, tell my mother about it, but I think
if your mother didn't have conflict resolution skills, what about your dad?
He was a long distance truck driver, so he wasn't home a lot.
But he sees these recurring domino effects. Somebody has to take charge on what's going on.
I think that we approach life and parenting a lot different than they did at that time. So I was born in the 60s, so they just...
So moving forward, when did you finally address the situation with your sibling?
To discuss the issue?
Yeah, what was going on? I mean, enough is enough. You tried that, but she beat you to the punch with hot water. When did you finally
I think we just continued to cohabitate together. And there was a point where my mother felt forcing us to stay in the same room was, going to resolve it, but it didn't. So eventually we just got our own rooms when the other people moved out, the other siblings moved out, and then we just continued cohabitating until we left for adulting, marriage, whatever.
So when you become an adult, you still suffer from not only
Trauma.
different traumas and the fear factor of being around your sister. Do you ever approach her with what's happened or why she did it? Was she ever diagnosed?
Okay.
This sounds more like a
Yeah.
borderline personality disorder. I'm not a doctor, nor do I play one, but listening to what you're telling me, narcissistic
Yeah.
personality disorder,
Depression.
depression. It could. What did you ever address it with her?
So I did, and just to skip forward, go back a little bit. I had the scarring on my chest, and I was, it was the trauma was both emotional and physical, but I was always concerned that when I got married that's going to be ugly, and and it bothered me a lot. But when I turned 21, I got sick from a medication that I didn't know I was allergic to, and I ended up in the hospital for 3 weeks with a minor Stevens Johnson syndrome.
When is that for the viewers so they know?
Where your skin kind of burns because you have an allergic reaction and your skin burns, and then you eventually get a rash. But the severe cases, they have to like wrap you up in bandages and stuff like that. They couldn't get my fever to cut from 103 for like 3 weeks. Wow. And so, but my whole body was swollen. They had to get blood out of my groin because they couldn't get it out of my arms, and then I got this rash. But with the rash, my entire top layer of skin fell off, and along with that, so did the scars.
Wow.
So I no longer have those scars.
It's almost like a
yeah.
curse, unquote, blessing
Yeah.
in disguise.
Something that worked out for my good. It wasn't good, but it worked out for my good.
When you, when did let's go back to your sister.
Okay. Well, so you asked me, when did we ever address it? Well, I went for years, for 42 years, without her, without having this conversation. And whenever the story would come up, I just got tired of people asking.
And did she ever reach out to you?
Well, over the years, we did talk, and when my father went on hospice, we were together. But my therapist kind of pointed out that I was too loyal to a fault, and I shouldn't have done that, been around her anyway, because we got into a disagreement, and as soon as I came back to the hotel, I threw my food away because I was like, I don't know what she did because she looks mad, whatever. So I would continue to talk to her, and the meanness towards people hadn't changed. Okay, in our conversation, she would talk about her coworkers or a neighbor or whomever, and the conversation never changed. It was always still a meanness towards people. And so one day, my therapist told me to ask her one day what her childhood was like for her.
I was getting ready to ask. Yeah. That was my next question. What was
childhood
that like for her?
And, she said, don't deny her feelings because everybody has a different experience in their house. Mm-hmm. So she was talking to me about something that happened with her daughter, and she doesn't have a good relationship with her kids. So she was talking about that, and when she was talking about that, I said to her, well, is it possible that you did something to upset her? No, she was just mad because of X, Y, and Z. So I said, well, my kids know me better than anybody, and there are times when they come to me and say, well, Ma, you did this, I felt this way. And I apologize because before we're parents, siblings, anything, we're human beings with flaws. Mm-hmm. And we don't always do everything right. And so is it possible? And so then I asked her the question. I said, well, what was it like growing up? Because you've, got let go from jobs because of, well, I got let go because I stood up for myself. And she was saying that I stood up for myself a lot. And so she said that my something about my brother had punched her in the face, and one time my dad hit her for no reason or whatever. And so when she got done, I said, "Well, do you want to know what my childhood was like, living with you?" And she was like, "What?" And I said, "You made my life a living hell." And she got quiet. And I said, "We never talked about it, but why did you burn me?" And so she said that I was about to choke her, that I was choking her. No, that I'm not about to. I was choking her and had her against the wall. And I was in shock. I said, "So that's what you've been telling yourself all these years, that I was choking you?" I said, "No, I'm going to tell you what happened, because the way if I had her against the wall, she would have never gotten anything in her hand, because where the wall was, the stove was all the way on the other side, right?" So I ran it all down to her. And then I said to her, I said, "And let's just, for kicks and giggles, say that that was the case. So what is your excuse for putting poison in my food? What was I doing then to deserve that? Or cleaning fluid in my drink?" So she just kind of got quiet. And I said, you're a very cruel person. And I said, and there's some problems there, and you need to get help. I said, because you're continuing the same pattern in the way you see people and approach people and interact with people, and you might want to deal with that. And she said, "No, I don't have any insurance," or and all these excuses, and "I'm not going to go because my kids, they're just going to want to give me medication." And I said, "Well, what's wrong with taking medication if that's what's going to calm you down?" She said, "Yeah, the doctor I saw before said that I'm very angry." And I said, "Well, then what's wrong with the medication?" "Well, when my kids were taking it, they said that it made them sick." She has a son who has bipolar and schizophrenia, a daughter who has bipolar. And so she stopped giving it to them. And I said, "Yeah, and how did that turn out?" I said, "You find ways to do a lot of because I listen to people very well, and you find a lot of ways to do what you want to do, but you're saying there's a barrier to getting treatment and getting help. And there's resources out there, and you need to do it, because your life could be better." And I said, "And trust me, I'm not having this conversation. I've forgiven you a long time ago. So I'm not having this conversation with you maliciously. I'm having this conversation because I care about you, and I'm the kind of person who's going to offer some kind of help if I feel like it's going to make someone's life better."
How difficult was it for you to actually get that off of your chest? I know you worked with your therapist to muster up the courage, but that's one thing. But being put in the moment to where you actually have to put action behind it, how difficult was that, and was that a relief for you after all that was off your chest? Even though you may not have gotten the answer that you wanted,
Right.
what was it like to finally get that off of your chest?
Well, my daughter happened to be in the other room, and I'm always concerned that, because it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And I never want to do harm. I want to try to help if possible, right? So my daughter was in the other room, and when the conversation was over, because we ended with, "Well, I have to go back to work." So I said, "We could talk or not," right? And she, I said, "We can talk another time or not." And she hung up the phone on me. And so I knew that we wouldn't talk again. And that was a couple of years ago, and we haven't, right? I do text her for her birthday, and she says, "Thank you," whatever. But my daughters came out and she said, "Mom, I'm really proud of you." She said, "I heard nothing but love in the conversation, and I'm also glad that you finally got an opportunity to to talk about it, because I got tired of people asking me, 'Well, have you guys ever talked about that?'"
Yeah.
And I felt relieved. I felt relieved. I couldn't believe I was in the moment. I was in looking from the outside in, I was a little shocked that I got that opportunity to finally talk about it. And, and we just went, I just went from there.
But the biggest question here is, and my hats off to you for taking that leap and working with therapists to not approach it with hate, but from love and putting yourself in her shoes, knowing that there was something there. You're not a doctor, but you know there was something there. With that said, you mentioned her having children. You mentioned the condition of the children. More importantly, did she ever become self-aware that she had issues that impacted you, and it clearly must be affecting her children because she's not resonating the behaviors?
Well, from the conversation, she saw herself as always being a victim.
Okay.
And when people see themselves as always being a victim, they're never going to take accountability.
When you wrote the book, Faith Through the Fog, first of all, how did the title come about? Then, more importantly, what got you through the completion of the book? Because truly, there's a lot of hurt, there's a lot of joy, there's a lot of forgiveness, and there's a lot of compassion in here. How did all this come about with this name?
Well, the name Faith Through the Fog, first of all, people kind of misunderstand what faith is. And a lot of people, especially Christians, and that's what bothered me, have a tendency to deny mental illness. And I felt a burden to alleviate the stigma. And, God impressed upon me to write the book because faith is not denying the existence of a problem. It's denying its permanence, its effects as being permanent because you can do something about it to alleviate the effects of it, right? And one day I was driving home and exhausted because I took my son to boarding school and I got stuck in a fog. And I had started the book, but so many feelings came up when I was caught in this fog. I kept thinking, oh my God, somebody might come behind me and not see me and hit me, or I might run into something. But I had to get to work the next day. I couldn't pull over. My daughter was in the back of the car asleep, and I couldn't pull over and stop until it passed. I had to go through it. So in relation to the book, when you're in the throes of a family experiencing mental illness, other things, or something's going on in your own life, or you have a coworker who's, behaving strangely or, according to what we see as normal, right? You're in a fog. And sometimes you don't know, well, what is going to happen as a result of what's going on in your life right now. So my idea is whatever kind of fog, that's when I began to see that whatever kind of fog we're going through in life, because we all have some sort of fog that we're going through, whether it be divorce, whether it be abuse, whatever, you are in a fog because you're wondering, like, how did I get here? How am I getting out of this? How do I push through it? I can't punch through it and get rid of it, especially like with grief. You have to go through it, right? But my idea is to say, have faith, but continue to go through it. But don't just go through it. Get what you need. Get the help that you need. It encourages medication because a lot of people think, oh, having faith means you don't take medication. No, God created doctors. A lot of people don't want to go to therapy. That's horrible because a therapist has the gift to pull things out of you and make you face it. Make you face it and deal with it so that your life can be better.
If you didn't have those resources, where do you think your life would have been? Would you have been a victim because you clearly was living in a state of fear based, paranoia. If those resources wasn't there, what do you think your life would have been?
Well, I was very suicidal as a child, as a teenager because of it. Thank God I had a few teachers who saw, when I went to school that, something was on my mind. And I remember having this one teacher, Mr. Pisa, and he would always have me sit next to his desk every day. And some days I would just sit there and cry. I didn't say anything. I just would cry because I felt so overwhelmed. And my parents were great parents. They were affirming, they were loving, they were encouraging, but they failed at protecting me, right? So, for whatever reason, I still feel like they did the best that they could and what they knew how to do. And they were in their own fog about different things as well, right? So I didn't feel protected. So I'd often go off by myself contemplating suicide, sometimes for hours just sitting someplace publicly. There was a cave in the back of this college, and I would go back there sometimes and just sit for like 2 hours and just cry. And my therapist later told me that that was a coping mechanism that I learned, right? But I'd also at times contemplate suicide. And there was a time when I did cut my wrist, but I cut it more so wanting help, somebody to understand that I was really hurting, that this is a lot, right? But I didn't go all the way with it. I didn't have the courage to go all the way with it because I had an older sister who had gotten pregnant out of wedlock, another sister who's, showing some signs of, some mental illness and disappearing for weeks. And I saw my mother cry all night and get up and go to work. So that's the thing that kept me from going all the way through with suicide.
So, was there anybody that, now that you look back and reflect, that you could have shared that with outside of the school?
I didn't have grandparents. I mean, my friends knew about the problem, of course, but they didn't know what to do. Even after she burned me, she went to school that day bragging to our friends, our mutual friends, asking them if they were going to come visit her in jail because she burned me. And she wasn't home, like my mother told her. She wanted to spite her too for whatever reason, whatever she felt towards my parents.
That's a lot to overcome. Knowing all the stuff that you went through, your daughter overheard a conversation of forgiveness and you letting go. What do you take into your life now with your kids? You came out of fear. You lived in fear, but now you're an adult. You got your master's in social. You took all of those hurts and turned them into resources for other individuals, as well as writing this book. But let's get real. You now have a family of your own. How do you keep them grounded, open, and help them understand what you went through? So the same thing, because it sounds almost like it's happening. It's these things of mental illness has been surfacing in your family's bloodline. What do you do to keep your family from being infected?
Well, my kids watch me go through. I was with their dad for 28 years, and we parted ways 13 years ago. And I've since that time myself been, in therapy and, what have you. And when I first left, because of things they heard him say, I don't believe in talking about the other parent to a child because they're a part of that parent. So you're tearing them down also. So things they heard him say about me, They really didn't know who I was until I was gone, like maybe 3 years after. And I always shared my journey with therapy, and our relationship was just tumultuous in front of them. And so now we're all in that position after I leave of walking out of this.
Mm.
My daughter stayed with him because she was 18 and her boyfriend lived around the corner, and my son left with me. And so he was 14 or 15 at the time. And so them seeing me go through that relationship and experiencing my own diagnosis and how I wasn't treated well by him during that time. And, like even, that's a part of my story. So that's in the book as well. Relationships, having relationships when you know that, this problem exists. And I asked my daughter, I said, so what do you think about what I wrote? She said, well, I felt like you made a lot of excuses for him. And I said, no, I didn't make excuses for him. I want people to focus on what I'm trying to convey and not see him as a bad person, because he is a nice person
Mm-hmm.
and he is a very funny person
Mm-hmm.
and he's very intelligent.
Mm.
Or I wouldn't have been with him, right?
That's what I was going to say. You
Right?
wouldn't have been with him.
But he just stopped being those things to me. And so there is no relationship anymore.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for coming and being on the show. How can the viewers get this beautiful book, read it, and be inspired by it?
It's on Amazon. It's on Amazon, and I'm on both Facebook and Instagram if they want to reach out to me. Coach Lisa Frank.
And before we leave, like I said before, this book is definitely. Who's this on the back of the book? Let's talk about
That's
her for a minute.
me. That's me.
So check this out. Looking at this person on the back of the book and everything that you went through, what would you tell this person now to where you're at? What would you tell this person?
I would tell that person that it's going to get better and that everything that we go through in life is for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And it's usually not for ourselves. It's usually our story is not our own. Our story it belongs to others that we're going to encourage along the way to say, you can make it. Don't give up. Don't take your life. Don't die by suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I volunteer at a grief camp every year for children who've lost a significant person and their guardians. And, often I have to, some of those people have family members who died by suicide, which is the new language. We no longer shouldn't say took their life or committed, because it's making it criminal when that person was really just not in their right mind. And and they can't understand it and take it personal sometimes. And I said, we just have to encourage each other in life. And I'm a person that whenever I go out the house, I talk to everybody. I speak to everybody because I feel like it's a wasted trip. And you just never know. You might smile at somebody who's at their end and decided to go home and take their life. But we look back at things that happened in our lives that we thought we weren't going to get through it when we were in the midst of it. But we look back at it and it's like, oh, I made it.
Ladies and gentlemen, pick up the book, Faith Through the Fall. This has been the one, the only Lisa Frank on the Andre The Beast Crayton show.